Welcome to Lead Different, the podcast that redefines leadership and challenges the status quo. Hosted by Daniel Dominguez, founder and CEO of Why Not Leadership. This show is your compass to becoming a better leader through the power of self-awareness. Good leaders foster teams that are engaged, empowered, and energized. Join us on this transformative journey as we equip you with the tools and insights to lead different. Get ready to challenge the ordinary and embrace self-aware leadership. This is Lead Different.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different, because great leaders change the world.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lead Different podcast. I'm excited to introduce you to our guest today, Adam Packard, the founder and creator of Ninja Prospecting. For the past 7 years, he has been helping thousands of business owners, salespeople, coaches, and recruiters leverage their time and deepen their impact using LinkedIn and cold email. Adam has been in sales and networking for the last 20 years. He has worked for national sales trainers, spoken on stages in front of thousands, and recruited and sold millions of dollars of products and services for both himself and his clients. Adam has written 2 books and studied copy and messaging religiously. He is always working on himself and receiving his own coaching in order to deliver the best service and product possible. Welcome to the show, Adam. How are you?
After that intro, I hope I don't disappoint. Great to be on.
There is no way you're going to disappoint. You
say all the good things, but all the stuff that I did wrong it's great that that's not in the intro, so it's all good.
We don't go searching for dirt on our guests, because you've got so many positives in your intro, Adam. And here's what I know. I know your dad, Jim Packard, has been a friend and a mentor and a coach to me for a few years now. And when he made this introduction, I can't believe he didn't make it sooner. The only thing that I'm mad at him about, because you and I are kindred spirits. You've been in the sales world. I've been in business development and sales for the past 30 years. You've been doing it for 20 years and very successfully. So I know Jim talks so well of you. I was excited to meet you. So we're not going to look for dirt on you, Adam.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
and the only dirt that we might possibly find is some good childhood stories that you probably don't want us to talk about that your dad would share.
I've got a few. I bring them up every time we get together. So yeah.
Those are fun. So Adam, first of all, I want to say this to our audience. I want you guys to remember Adam Packard, because Adam Packard is an up and comer. He is doing some amazing things. We were talking in the pre-show about, if you're not following Adam on LinkedIn, follow him. He's got some tremendously great insight that he shares and stuff that really resonates with our kind of people. Now, when I say our kind of people, is why not leaders? I work with leaders, Adam, who say, why not? Who are willing to say, why not get to know myself better? Why not know my team better? Why not know the people I spend the majority of my life with better? Why not all of us be better through the amazing power of self-awareness, which is what we do. And Adam, you are one of the most self-aware people I have met, just based on our short conversations that we've had and what you're posting on LinkedIn. What's your inspiration for those great LinkedIn posts?
I'd like to say I'm as consistent as I'd like to be. I have stretches where I go weeks without posting, and then I say I should really be posting more often and practice what I preach, right? So, but I was telling you earlier, I had a conversation with a gentleman that posts every single day on LinkedIn. And I said, well, how do you come up with that strategy, and what do you say? And he's like, honestly, I just use LinkedIn as kind of like my personal journal, and I don't say anything offensive. I hope I don't. I don't post anything religious or political, but he's like, I just share my thoughts. And I don't do it to get likes or to get comments. I do it just because this is what's in my head at the moment. Whether it's I have a conversation with someone and I want to share that, or I have this moment of inspiration and I want to make sure that it comes through or I remember it. So it's almost like a way to kind of record my own thoughts and share, insights that I found valuable for myself, and hopefully they're valuable for other people as well. So when I tell people about content on LinkedIn, the goal isn't to do content to generate leads. It's to build an audience and to have people get to know you a little bit. And so hopefully, my personality and kind of my, my thought process and my creativity comes through in that. And that's really the only goal that I have when I share content.
Well, as you know, Adam, and one of the things that my coaching and my business is based in is understanding your why. And Simon Sinek talked about that way back when in 2008. He said, look, if you tell people what you believe, you're going to attract people who believe what you believe. And you do a great job of putting stuff out there. I was working with another coach, Mark Halpert. He's a LinkedIn coach, a LinkedIn expert. And he says, look, let people know what you believe so that they know what you believe and they know whether they want to follow you or not. If there's something you love and you think other people might love, share that. And if there's something you know that you think other people should know, share that. And I think you do a great job of that. So kudos on your, you might say it's not the most consistent strategy. From what I've seen, you've done a great job so far.
I appreciate that. I mean, I think the key is you have no expectation, right? If you anytime I try to get creative on a post, I'm like, oh, I could do a post on this, and I try to force it, it never works out well, right? But when I have a moment of inspiration and I share something, I just detach completely, whether or not people like it or not. If someone sees it and it helps them, great. If not, hey, it helped me. So that's the goal.
That's a great, and who was the author that shared that with you?
So Chris Croft is someone that I had on our podcast recently. And he's a big LinkedIn trainer. He's got like 40 plus courses on LinkedIn learning. And that was his take was treat LinkedIn and content like your own personal journal, and gives you a chance to just kind of record your thoughts, and that gets people inside your head. And I said, that's just genius. And I'm going to start doing the same thing.
That's really good. Adam, I'm going to go back to a post you posted 4 days ago because it really goes well with our theme. The name of our podcast is the Lead Different podcast. We're all about thinking outside the box, doing things differently. And your post 4 days ago said, if you're not excited about what you're doing every day, it's time to think different. Think outside the box. No matter what business I've been in, the more fun I'm having, the more I attract the right people to me. Tell me what you tell the audience. What do you mean? What does that mean?
Well, I mean, if you're not enjoying your business, why would anybody want to join you? I mean, we work with a lot of coaches, and a lot of them are just so serious and so focused. And I'm just like, if you're having a conversation with someone, detach completely from the outcome of whether or not they're going to become a client. I think you have to have more conversations in order to get to that point, right? If you have 2 or 3 conversations a month and you're desperate for clients, it's going to come across when you're talking to someone. When I talk to someone, I always like to kind of set the stage in the beginning and say, hey, Dan, before we even dive into a conversation, let's just set the expectation. What are we hoping to get out of this, right? Are we looking to just network? Are you looking for help in this area? Do you just want some ideas? Do you want to make a new friend? Can I help you in another area? And it almost lets people's guard down a little bit where they're like, oh, okay, so he's not going to just endlessly pitch me on his services. And, our company, Ninja Prospecting, I say it's the opposite of every, lead gen LinkedIn marketing company out there. And a lot of it has to do with our approach and how we, kind of position, when I get onto a call with someone. And that my first goal is to have a conversation, build a relationship. If you need our services, great. If not, I'll give you some ideas. But I think that's a better way to approach people. And when I say, have fun in your business, if you're not having fun in your business, find something else to do. I mean, life's too short to not enjoy what you're doing. I get to meet people from all over the world that have crazy stories and amazing backgrounds. Some of them become clients, some of them become friends, some I never talk to again. Some I can't stand and wouldn't want to talk to again because they just don't we don't vibe, and that's okay too. But if you're not enjoying what you're doing, I always enjoy sharing with my wife. Hey, I just talked to a guy, the other day that he's a business coach and he used to fight in the UFC. I was like, that's just cool. And then I've got another client that was a Navy SEAL and he teaches sleep training. I was like, that's really cool. And so I'm looking for these, stories and people I can meet that are just interesting and they love what they do and they're good at it. But I think you have to just enjoy the process more.
I love that. That's really, really cool, Adam. And it goes with your goal. Our show prep, we looked at your mission, your goal. Your goal is to build relationships and approach people the right way, where you not only find opportunities today, but keep the door open for conversations in the future. And there's something to be said about not tying an outcome to the conversation. Let's just let it happen naturally. I enjoy those conversations so much. And I think the more we're in business and the more successful we are, the more people want to pitch us.
Yeah.
And the more people approach me naturally and we have a conversation, hey, at the end of the day, and you know this, Adam, we're here to sell, right? And we're in business development. We've got it. There's a number we have to hit. There's a business we have to run, and it doesn't run without sales. So we understand that sales are important. But what's the secret to detaching from the outcome, so that, because there's the pressure to make the sale and keep the business running. What's your advice to someone who's having a hard time and they have, as one of my good friends calls it, commission breath? You know, the client can just tell that you're just a commission check to them.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the person that has the most conversations is going to win, right? Back when I was in my network marketing days, I was one of the top recruiters. My dad was a top recruiter. We got asked to speak on stage, and everybody asked, how are you guys doing this? What are you doing that's so different? I'm like, I'm not any different than you. I'm just doing more, right? The company said, talk to one person a day, and I would talk to 10. That's the only difference. I made up, Jim Rohn says, make up in numbers what you lack in skill. You get better. The more conversations you have, the more you flex that muscle, the more comfortable you're going to be when you get onto a call. So if you're not having a lot of conversations, even if it's just networking conversations, getting to know someone, from a cold message, and learning how to start that conversation, whether or not they become a client or not, it's just a good muscle to start to learn how to work. And sadly, a lot of the people that we have conversations with rely mainly on referrals, warm market. They're hoping someone likes or comments on one of their posts and messages them. And I can count on one hand how many posts I've made in 7 years, and I've gotten that many clients out of it, right? So I think you just have to have a lot more conversations, and that's kind of where we come in is, listen, they don't always have to be sales conversations. I just created, some messaging and some strategy for a new client. And I told them, based on what you gave me, I don't want you to sound like every other coach reaching out to business owners, because if you approach people this way, you're immediately going to cut off any future opportunity you might have with them. But if you approach them this way, adding value first, and not trying to sell them and pitch them in a message. And sadly, that's what everybody does on LinkedIn these days, which makes what we do stand out even more. But when you approach people the right way, yeah, they might become a client down the road, but you immediately rise to the top of the conversation pile. Like if you get 10 messages a day from people, and the one message says, "Hey, Dan, would love to learn more about your podcast and the work that you're doing. Tell me more." You'd be like, "Awesome, I'll tell you more about my work." Versus me saying, "Hey, Dan, I can fill your calendar with 20 appointments tomorrow. I don't even know your business, and I can fill your calendar." It's just, there's so much garbage on LinkedIn these days. When you approach it the right way, you just generate more of those opportunities. So I think at the end of the day, it comes down to having a lot more conversations, being comfortable with being uncomfortable, reaching out to cold people. It's like going into a networking event, right? The goal of going into a networking event, an in-person networking event, because I used to be a member of BNI, and I have a friend that runs a business called Master Networks, which is an awesome networking group. The goal of most people when they go to a networking group is, I'm going to try to sell every member in here my services. That's the opposite of what you should be doing. It should be, "Hey, Dan, here's a little bit more about what I do. Who do you know that could use my services?" If Dan wants my services, great. If not, Dan knows thousands of people that he could connect me to. So I think you just have to be okay with having a lot more conversations, not having them all be sales conversations, and building a network of people that like and know and trust you.
Man, that is gold right there. And really, a couple of things you said there that really strike home. And I don't know if you know Liz Wendling. She's got a short video on her profile. If you go to her LinkedIn, she talks about I, and how many of us are trying to start conversations with, "I would love to meet you. I have something that can help you. I." She says, look at your last 10 emails and count how many times you said "I," and change those to "you." And you did that expertly just now. Call someone and say, "Hey, Adam, I saw your podcast and I'd love to hear more about what you are doing." Make it about the other person. And that leads to the person understanding, hey, you care about them. It's not about you, because you can't help them until you know them.
That's it. And it's so funny when I get a message back from someone saying, "What are your prices?" And I'm like, I'm not going to share my prices with you. I don't even know what your business is. I don't even know if we're in alignment, if my values align with yours, if our philosophies are the same. If you're just competing on price, I'm not for you. So that's just, it's an easy, easy kind of deflection, but yeah, it's 100% true.
Well, one thing you said that I want to make sure we highlight, I'm going to put this on a banner. This probably will be the headline for when we put your podcast out. The person who has the most conversations wins. And I love what you said. You 10x the minimum, right? So if they say have one conversation today, you have 10. If they say have 10, have 100. Reps are so important. And I can tell just by talking to you, Adam, you've done this conversation thing for a while and you do it at a high level. You can tell when you're in front of someone who's a professional at what they do, because the conversation flows so easily. And we talked a little bit before the podcast, going over your results. Hey, do you mind if we go over your results real quick, Adam?
Sure. How about it?
So our listeners, a lot of our listeners are why coaches, people who are in the space, who understand the importance of understanding everybody's why. So every guest that we have on the Lead Different podcast, we give them the YOS discovery. And you had, so guys, hold on to your seats, because our friend Adam has a really cool why operating system. His why is mastery. So as you guys all know, mastery, that means Adam likes to learn things at a deep level. He's a lifelong learner. He reads books incessantly, loves to learn. So when Adam talks, he speaks from a place of expertise and mastery of his craft. And we talked about that before the show. So that really resonated with him. This is where, especially you why coaches, are going to say his how is simplify, which means he takes all that complex stuff, all that reading that he does, all that knowledge, and finds a way to make it simple and easy to understand. So you can imagine the value that brings to Adam's clients as he works with them, and is what is trust. And those, all three, just match so well. You learn things at a deep level, you make them simple and easy to understand, and you use that to build trust with your clients. And that's important to you. Because our audience wasn't in on that conversation. Tell us your thoughts about your why operating system, Adam.
Yeah, no, that was interesting because I didn't know until 20 minutes ago. So, but I've like I told you, I've always been a lifelong learner. I've read every book. In fact, I don't know if I told you this before, but I think it was like 2010. This is before I got married and had kids. But my girlfriend had just broken up with me. And I was just, I'm like, I'm going to focus 100% on my business. But I had the crazy idea. I'm like, I'm going to read a book a day for a year. And so I basically read, and I didn't get to a year. I got to like day 270, and I was completely burned out. But I read about 270 books that year. And if you ever want to have a laugh, you can go to YouTube and search my name, and you'll see I did a book review on each and every one. But I've always thought that if I invested in myself, whether it was a book, a course, a coach, a training, a seminar, if I invested in myself, it was always going to be a good investment, because I always think you can learn something. So I've always, of course, I worked for a motivational speaker, right? So that kind of got me into that space. So I've always been a lifelong learner. And then when it comes to simplifying things, I think you kind of just have to do that. People, I talk to coaches all day long, and they have all these different things that they're doing. I'm like, let's just take what you're doing and narrow it down to just this. Because if you tell me you're a business coach and you help business owners with leadership development, I'm going to throw up a little bit in my mouth, because that is just not good enough. We've got to get a little bit more granular and simplify what you're doing down to one or two things, because in order to stand out when you're reaching out to people, you have to simplify it. You can't be general, you can't be broad. So I think that combination of diving deep into areas that are important to me, whether it's copywriting, LinkedIn strategy, looking at what's working, what's not. And I've studied this for the last 7 years, because what worked 5 years ago on LinkedIn doesn't work today. And what works today, probably not going to work next year. So you always have to be reinventing, but then simplifying the process to say, okay, based on what you're trying to do, here are the strategies I would implement. Just simplify the process, because a lot of the people we work with are great at what they do, whether they're coaches, salespeople, but sometimes putting on that marketing hat and saying, how do I generate a conversation with someone that doesn't know me, that I can get their attention in a super competitive field? And that's what I just find so much joy in trying to figure out what is that thing that I can help you do to kind of oversimplify the process, where now all of a sudden you have as many conversations, because most conversations wins, as many conversations as you can handle, and do it in a way that feels authentic. And I know that's an overused term from 2023, but it has to feel like, okay, this is something that if I had the time and the knowledge to actually create something. This is exactly what I would do, and it matches their brand. So that's where I find joy is creating something, having the client come back to me and saying, this is spot on, this is awesome, I can't wait to get this going, and then watching the results come through, and that's a home run for me.
Love that. Hey, man, this is really good. So let's go into that a little bit, because the other thing, when we talk about trust, and your dad's big on trust, I think trust is, and authenticity. You talked about authenticity, so important. And I think when you go enter into these conversations, a lot of people I work with are struggling to get their message out and build those relationships. So building trust comes from, I think, going in without an agenda, which you've talked about already. What's the key that you would say to building authentic relationships where people can build trust with you? Because you work with a lot of people.
Yeah, it's different. Every time I have a call, of course, I have different types of calls, right? I have people that are looking to be on our podcast. I have people that are looking for ideas with LinkedIn. I have just networking conversations. And sometimes it's a mix of all of them. So I think kind of setting the stage at the beginning does a good job of just kind of letting their barrier down. I think once someone talks to me, because the key is cutting through the noise, right? If I can cut through the noise and get to a conversation, I've obviously done something to stand out. Because when a guy that does lead gen reaches out to you and you get 50 of those messages a week, if I'm able to cut through the noise to get to your calendar and we have a conversation, hopefully that shows you that I can help you do the same thing, because everybody's in super competitive fields. But when I have a first conversation with someone, I want them to like me. I want them to enjoy the conversation. I don't want them to feel like they're going to be hard sold. I want to add value. I want to give them some ideas. And I think just my personality and the way I just kind of let them just, tell me about your business. I want to hear, what's working, what's not. I'll share some ideas with you. If you want to know more about our process, happy to share it with you. It's no hard sell. I'm not going to pitch you and say, sign up today and you get X discount. That's not our approach. If it's a fit, great. If not, hey, we'll, stay in touch. And if and when you need me in the future, let me know. And I think when I kind of, start the calls that way, people immediately just kind of, keep your wallet in your pocket. I'm not going to ask you to buy, although you might want to. Let's just have a conversation here, see where it goes, and we'll take it from there. And I think that allows people to just kind of, be open. Of course, I do the typical rapport building, guy went to the same school as me, or, sure. I've, friend that lives in Dallas. Oh, I've got a good buddy that lives there. Just a little bit of that rapport building just to find out. And some people are more open to that. And some people are just like very strict and let's have an agenda and get through this. And those really aren't always my type of people. I want people that are fun, have a good personality, that love what they do, that are good at it. And those are the people I like to have those conversations with. And that's usually when the conversations flow really easily.
I love that you said that, because one of the things you mentioned earlier, Adam, and this is so hard sometimes, especially when you're a solopreneur and you're just starting out, you want to take any business, but you stated very clearly, there are some people, you know what, maybe I don't want to work with them. And you're going to be very quick to say, you know what, we're probably not a fit, and say your goodbyes, but maybe you refer them to someone, or you say, hey, look, maybe we're just not a fit for each other. How hard is it to determine that? And then, you probably had a time when there was that pressure to take any business. How were you able to make the shift from, hey, I'll take any business because I'm trying to build my business, to, hey, now I can choose who I want to work with? And I think I tend to believe that you can do that at any time, but love to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, I'm a work in progress. I'm not perfect at this. And I have stretches where, things go dry and I'm like, I'll take anybody. And I realize that's never the right way to go. Back when I started this, it was anybody that had a LinkedIn account and a credit card. I'll figure it out, right? It didn't matter. Right. Since the last 7 years, we've grown quite a bit. But I actually had a sales trainer that I interviewed yesterday on our podcast, and we talked about the same thing. I said, anytime that you try to force it, whether they're asking you for a discount or can you do this instead? Anytime you force it, it never works out well. Yeah. But I think you have to get to the point where you're okay to turn people away. And that gives you almost like a position of power and just, you feel better about yourself. If you don't feel like you can really help that person, you are not serving yourself by bringing them on board as a client, because it's never going to work out. based on our conversations, I don't think we're a good fit. I'd like to refer you to somebody else. And when you have the other person's best interest at heart,
Yes.
whether or not they don't become a client, but now you've generated a fan, right? Someone that thinks of you in a different light. So yeah, I have stretches where I probably bring on a couple people that I shouldn't bring on, but I try to be a little bit more diligent now in saying, I know I can help this person. But then you find that person that you're like, oh, I know I can help this person, and then you get too excited because you're like, this is a perfect fit, we're gonna do great, and you need to sign up now. And so you get a little bit too antsy and too excited. So you're gonna have to kind of keep your emotions in check too. So it's like there's a balance and an art to it where, yeah, you want to generate the clients, but at the end of the day, you really want to do what's best for the person on the other end. And if there's a fit, great. But I'm never one to force it. If someone doesn't want to work with us, I'm not the hard sell type. It's more of, I want to attract the right people to us. But it's like I said, I'm not perfect in that area. It's a work in progress. But the more conversations you have, the more you can kind of get to that point where you don't have that commission breath, and you can focus more on the other person, do what's best for them. If it's a fit, great. If not, you refer them to someone else. But people would just respect you more for that.
I'm part of a community, Adam, called Selling from the Heart. Larry Levine wrote a great book called Selling from the Heart. And his community talks about exactly, I mean, you could be a recording of our mastermind conversation that we had this morning on that. And it really is, if you're here to help people, then if you can't help someone, you're not going to force it, because trying to force a square peg into a round hole, eventually, guess what? You're going to have that tough conversation where you got to give that client his money back and say, sorry, I can't help you. And then who wants to do that? Just because you talk them into working with you, right?
It's the worst. And I've had to do that, a few times, and it's an awkward conversation. And, it always stems from where the relationship started. Whether it's over promising and under delivering, which is sadly prevalent in the lead gen and marketing world. So yeah, just being cognizant of that and understanding that, my only goal is to do what's best for this person. If the best thing to do for this person is to tell them we're not a fit, do that. If the best thing to say is you really need us, but it's up to you whether or not you want to engage, just being honest with people. And I think they'll appreciate that.
That's really good. So let me ask you this one question. This I think is really important for a lead gen guy who helps people create demand. How do you help people stand out in this marketplace, in a crowded marketplace? How can you stand out?
We could talk for an hour on that, Dan. It really depends. I mean, when I talk to a new person, first questions I usually ask are, tell me about the work you do, right? Most of our clients are in the coaching, consulting, speakers, trainers. That's kind of our world that we play in. And I know it's super competitive, but I believe everybody needs a coach. I think coaches, add a ton of value. Everybody should have at least one coach. I have multiple. I'm sure you do as well. But the first thing it starts with is tell me a little bit more about your offer, right? I want to hear, hopefully you're not charging $50 an hour. Hopefully you have some packages with some results. Hopefully you're bringing on clients right now. So tell me a little bit more about your offer and what makes it different. Tell me more about you and your background and how that relates to now what you do, because before COVID, there were 2 million coaches. After COVID, there's 6 million coaches. So you better have a way to stand out in a sea of coaches. What audience, is your ideal client? And if people say it's business owners or it's entrepreneurs, then sadly, you're not going to break through the noise. So, part of what I do, even if they don't become a client, is say, based on your background, this is the audience that I would target. Yeah, you can serve more than just that audience. Like if someone came to me and they said, hey, I have a B2B startup and we're trying to launch this software, can you help? Possibly, yeah. I market more to coaches just because I enjoy working with coaches. But doesn't mean I can't not have other people as clients. But I think it's super important to have that audience really dialed in, to have your offer, differentiated. And a lot of it needs to be more results based versus, oh, I can do this and I can do this. Well, that's great. But what is it going to get me at the end of the day? Like our deliverable is, yeah, we're going to do messaging and we're going to create a strategy and do outreach and start conversations. But at the end of the day, my goal is to not only help you generate the leads, but help you convert them into clients. And so we've built a whole community. So I don't know of many lead gen companies that do the done for you stuff up front, but then have a community mastermind of other coaches, consultants, speakers, trainers that come together every single week. And we do sales training and coaching. We do mindset training and coaching. We do event marketing. We do content strategy. So it kind of gives them everything that they need for the business development piece, because you talk about, you know, solopreneur, you can't do it all yourself. And, you know, you might be very good at what you do, but there are other people that you could hire that can do these other things faster and better for you and get you better results. But a lot of people just aren't willing to make that investment. And so trying to find that group of people where they're very good at what they do, we kind of help them narrow down the offer and the audience and how to approach people. And then you talk about how to stand out and be different. It really depends on who you're targeting. If I'm targeting founders, business owners, C-suite, I can't approach you. Let's say you're a CEO of a 5,000 person company. I'm not going to reach out to you and say, hey, Dan, I can help your leadership team do X, Y, and Z. I've been a coach for the last 30 years. Here's my link. Let's book a strategy call. You're going to get crickets. They're not even going to respond. But if I reach out to you and say, hey, Dan, I work with a lot of CEOs of large companies. I'm putting together a book. And again, you can't be lying about this. It actually has to be true, right? So whether it's a book or an interview for content or articles that you share or a white paper or case studies, if I reach out to you and said, hey, Dan, I'm interviewing other CEOs like yourself to gain insights around how they're developing their teams for a new book I'm creating. Would you be open to chatting with me for 10 or 15 minutes and sharing some insights? I'd love to hear your take on how you do this with your team. You get plenty of responses that way. It's not a sales call for you, but now you've got your foot in the door and you've raised your credibility up, and you immediately stand out from the other 50 coaches that are reaching out to that guy trying to pitch and sell them. So depending on the audience that you're reaching out to, the approaches have to change. If you're targeting middle managers, you can be more direct. If you're targeting C-suite or founders, you have to think outside the box. But you have to look at multiple strategies at the same time in order to fill your pipeline. That's kind of what we do. Is everybody's plan and everybody's program is different based on what they're trying to do and who they're trying to reach. At the end of the day, it's all about more conversations. But how do we get to that point? And how do we help you stand apart from the other people that are in your industry that are probably reaching out to the same audience, and do it in a way that makes you, the top of the pile of the guy's mailbox?
That's really good, Adam. Man, I think we could, I'm questioning the format of my show to keep it only to half an hour, because there's so many more questions I have for you. And we might just have to have you back for a part 2, Adam. But let's get to the we're Why Not Leadership. So we like to ask the question, Adam, Nate, tell us about a time in your life that you said why not to a decision, a career choice, or something that you are so glad you said yes to, something that you said why not to, that you're glad you said yes to.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I love it. I think when you look back over the course of career and different jobs and different paths we've taken, it's easy to look back and say, oh, that was a good choice, or that worked out well. In the moment, things don't always seem that way. So I would say that why not moment probably came 7 years ago. When I started doing this, I got laid off from a corporate role. I was never a corporate guy. I got recruited to work at a network marketing company on the corporate side, and I did it for 4 or 5 years. And I got laid off out of the blue. I had no idea what I was going to do. I had my new son. We newly married, had just moved, and I got laid off. It was like the perfect storm. It was like everything happens all at the same time. And I had a friend reach out to me, and he said, hey, I know you're in between things right now. I can't pay you what you were making, at your corporate job, but you can come, help me with our new startup. And I need help generating some leads for this new business that we have. And I said, okay, well, I've been in networking and sales. I can figure this out. And that's kind of how I started the LinkedIn stuff. He was trying to sell advertising services online, like visual display stuff. And I basically Googled, how do I sell advertising, and realized the only, who's the audience, who buys this? And I realized the only place I could find him was on LinkedIn. I'm like, well, I have a LinkedIn account. Hadn't logged in 10 years. So let me log in and see if I can do this. And I started to figure out what works and what doesn't. Of course, like I said, things have changed a lot over the last 7 years. But we got some good results. And then my wife was like, hey, you should do this for other people. You're good at this. And I'm like, why not? Right. So that was kind of my moment, was her kind of pushing me into this, and haven't looked back since.
And by the way, great post about your anniversary. I know that had to have gotten you. I hope you showed it to her. My wife doesn't look at my LinkedIn unless I show it to her. But great post. You know, what a great encourager you have. What a great partner you have. You've got one son, or how many kids do you have?
So I have two stepsons that are in college, and then we have an 8-year-old together.
Wow. Well, congratulations, Adam. That was a great why not moment. What do you say we end the show on that note?
Why not?
Thank you so much, Adam, for being on. I look forward to continuing this conversation and this relationship. Just for everybody's information, Adam is everything Jim Packard said he would be, and I am so excited to have you join our network, speak to our audience, and be a resource for us. We're going to put your contact information in the show notes, but make sure people can reach out to you on LinkedIn. And what's the best way to get a hold of you, Adam?
Yeah, either just go to our website, ninjaprospecting.com, find me on LinkedIn, send me a message, say you heard me on a podcast and you want to connect. Would love to connect and meet you. But yeah, obviously I'm on LinkedIn 24/7, so that's probably the easiest way.
Awesome, Adam. Well, have a great rest of your day, and thank you everyone for tuning in for the Lead Different podcast.
Thanks,
we'll see you all soon.
This is Lead Different.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different because great leaders change the world.
Why not leadership? Why not lead different? When you do the things that everyone else does, you get the same results as everyone else gets. Let's do things a little different. Let's lead different. And ask yourself this: why not?